Thank you, ladies, so much. This is such a delight to be here with everybody. I want to thank the Vandy people, too, because Barbara said, did you notice she says Vull? You do not say Nashville. I know this because I live in Louisville. So get your VOOOOOLs out when you're talking to anybody in the South. And I think I might be able to take her on my accent, because if I get on my Raylan Jennings from Justified, I can talk that way, too. So we'll have a little competition on that. And then, of course, we're not going to diss Lydia anymore about her beautiful King's English. I am with you, my friend. I love it. I'm such an Anglophile. Anyway, so on a serious note, all of this has been just amazingly powerful, I think. Everything we've seen today, even in this last 15 minutes, is powerful. And it's sending a message. And it's really pushing our mission. And when, interestingly, Sarah Marianne, for those of you that never been here, traditionally the President's Address, by the way, is given on Friday morning, right before I announce the recipient of the President's Award. And then that person comes up and actually takes over and does that lovely speech. But Sarah Marianne, being Sarah Marianne, always wanted to shake things up. They said, hey, Burns, we want you to do this as the kickoff. So I said, absolutely. I've got my marching orders. And then serendipitously, when they started telling me who they wanted to be in these opening comments, our Vanderbilt team from PBM, one of our really newest up-and-coming groups you all presented last year, showed where you've been, how you were leading the charge in PBM. And then, of course, these grand and glorious folks from Human Touch, who have, again, helped us develop this powerful, unbelievably, this message that's reaching out across the globe. So all of these people and all of you in this room are probably taking this on, and that these kinds of things are jettisoning. They are jettisoning, is that a word? Lydia, help me. And it really goes to show how people are leading in this charge. And so during this time when they were telling me what they were doing, I had this little whirly bird in my brain that I was thinking about leadership as well. I've been thinking about the last 2 years as I've been president, which has been an honor to do. Where were we with SABM? Where were we going? Of course, if you were with us, you probably in Vegas, we rolled out our new strategic plan. These are the pillars. I'm not going to read them to you. But what we've been focusing on internally with executive committee, board, our committee chairs, our committee members, everybody that's out there doing patient blood management with SABM as a resource has access to this. And you can use this to drive your own change and to drive your program. We've been doing that. I thought about leadership this year because this is the year we had an election, right? We have 2 new incoming officers. We have 4 new incoming board members and 2 returning. A big, big year. So we've had a lot of leadership change. We're going to see different chairs of committees, new members on the rosters of our committees. And by the way, I'd welcome any and all of you to join. So lots of things in leadership that have changed. So it got me thinking about leadership in general. What does it mean? What does it really mean? How do we act? How do we do? And for those of you that know me well, I'm always saying I love words. So if I bore you with that, for those of you that know me, for those of you that don't, I was a progeny of 2 parents that were teachers by training. And so my mother being the English teacher, she always taught us about choosing your words wisely. Know the meaning of your words because that actually reflects your character. And it is going to become the starting point with your words of the conversation you have with people around you. So for me to go back and think about leadership, what's going on in SABM with leadership, I have to get down to brass tacks and dust off my actual, truly, my Webster's that's on my bookshelf. I could have gone virtual, but I actually dusted it off, pulled it down, and this is the definition of leadership. I don't think that's surprising, is it? I don't think it's surprising when you've seen these people that have been up here, that this is what they do. This is what they represent, a position, a function, guidance, and direction of a group. That's the meaning, the definition of leadership. But as we go forward and you start thinking about it, I don't know about you, I'm going to harken back to 1991 when I went into private practice. So I'm dating myself, the newly minted associate pathologist at Jewish Hospital Healthcare. And I had to go into a role of leadership as one of the pathologists in my department. Over the years, as I grew in that practice, there were many other hats I had to wear: duties, responsibilities, expectations, deliverables. Was I always ready to do that? Was I ready to lead? And in 1991, I can tell you, and I bet some of you that are of my vintage, there weren't books and classes and skill sessions to learn leadership, not for healthcare. That was for those business people. They did that. Yeah, you're shaking your head. I mean, believe me, my dad would always talk to me about this stuff. He was in business ultimately. He'd go, why don't you guys have classes on leadership? I'm going, Dad, it's healthcare, for crying out loud. But what did we see? Starting in about the years 2000s, early 2000s, all of a sudden, people start getting smart. And they're saying we as healthcare providers and healthcare advocates need to learn leadership skills. So it also makes you think, well, is leadership nature? Are you born to it? Or is it something that you learn? Skills, drills. So is it nature, nurture? I would venture to say it's a little bit of both. So I must tell you, as I started to become senior partner in my group and president of my pathology group, chair of my department, and I was doing that at the ripe old age of 35 years old, thank you, a bit deer in headlight, I started finding things that I could do to learn about leadership. Am I doing it? And if I'm doing it, am I doing it well? How do I measure that in myself and in my team? How do I assure that I'm doing the things that these folks that were before me are doing so well? So I did start reading, being the lover of words, and I'm going to share with you a few of what I call my library, my litany, and my light bulb moments. Things that I've read, and by the way, this is not all that's on my shelf, but these are some of the ones I really like. So I don't know how many of you have ever read Adam Grant. He is an organizational psychologist, and he works out of the Wharton School, teaches classes. And one of his books, out of many, is one that's called Think Again. So as a leader, you have to think. In fact, he has a funny little comment in it that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it think. I like it. So I'll sometimes say that to my kids. But I think the bottom line for me out of Think Again from Adam Grant in this book is the power of leadership is the power to know what you don't know. And I think many of us talk about this when we're educating, when we're out there teaching, whether that's our patients, whether that's our coworkers. The power of leading is knowing what you don't know. Stop and think again. Then, of course, I love the book by Dr. Jack Cochran. He's a retired surgeon. He was also the CMO for a period of time for Kaiser Permanente in Colorado. He was one of our speakers that we've had in the past as a keynote. His book is entitled Healer, Leader, Partner. I don't have to tell you what the book is about, because don't you love the way he sandwiches leader in between healer and patient partner? That tells you in a nutshell what he talks about. It's a fabulous book. Another one I read was the good old down-home Strength Finders. How many in the room have ever done Strength Finders? Bunch of us, yeah. It really, see, that's a new thing. That came out in the early 2000s for healthcare. And it wasn't just for healthcare, but I think a lot of us in healthcare started to do that. Tom Rath was originator, strength-based leadership. And that's all about you find your strengths, you also identify your weaknesses. Yes, we all have them. So what the point is you build your team to bring the strength that someone else has where you are weak. You know what you don't know, so you have that person that knows it come to join you. Great book. Greg McKeown. Now, I read this. This gentleman is in communications and journalism, has his MBA. And although he was speaking a little bit to the business side of leadership, I read this during COVID, and it's called Essentialism. And the bottom line of this book is what we all like to say is don't boil the ocean. He puts it a different way. Look at the essentials, keep with those essentials and focus on those, and basically remove the trivial many. And I love that line. Remove the trivial many. Get rid of the chaff and pay attention to the wheat. So I thought that was a really good thought to try to keep us focused on our work. I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to listen to any of Brene Brown's podcasts. She is fabulous. She's hysterically funny, by the way. But she is a PhD sociologist. She's an endowed chair at the University of Houston. And she has this beautiful book called Dare to Lead. And what I love about Brene Brown, even though she's funny as heck, and she makes it a real delight to listen to her or to read her. The bottom line for her, from her background, is learning that as a leader, you are vulnerable. Accept your vulnerability. You will be wrong, you will fail, but know and accept your vulnerability, embrace it, rumble with it, because it's going to keep you human. And I love that. Then we have the quintessential Quint Studer. Actually, Jewish Hospital, when I was in practice, he had Quint Studer and their team come. It's the first time I'd had an official session like this for leading in healthcare. And in hardwiring excellence, he essentially gets down to the brass tacks. You got to have a purpose, you got to do the work, and you got to make a difference. And if you use those pillars, you can do that alongside your team. Don Palmisano, for some of us that remember Dr. Palmisano, he has since passed away. He was a surgeon, he was an attorney, and he was a past president of the AMA. His little book on leadership, along with some other little quotes, also talks about, and I like this, you are a leader not just in calm, you must lead through crisis. And I think that's sometimes the hardest thing to do, right? As if we've ever talked, like my colleague Carolyn Clancy tells me, we've got that old norming, storming, forming, or performing, whatever it is, but it's that storming phase that's the hardest. But if we're vulnerable and we know what we don't know, we accept that we have to work our way through crisis. And then, of course, one of the old, pardon me, I shouldn't have done that, back. One of the old books, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. I think there are a number of people in the leadership team in AABB that have been reading through this. I'm not going to tell you I remember any of the 21. I don't. What I got out of this book was mainly that what you need to remember is you lead leaders for tomorrow. So it kind of harkens back for me to something my mother used to say to us as she was leading us little chicks, right? She was guiding us, and she would say, I'm going to give you your roots and then give you your wings. And I think that's what we really want to do, and it's something I want to see us do in SABM, is we all want to lead, and we want to lead beyond our tenure. We want others to take on. So all of these have been very important to me in terms of my personal light bulb moments. I think they've helped me through different times in my life, leaving my practice, jumping ship at age 51 to go out in consulting. What did I do? Are you crazy? And I was comfortable where I was, and then you take on new roles even in that consulting, and that changed from time to time, and that's okay. So I would kind of go back to these, but I'm going to share with you my absolute favorite. And the reason I like this book, because it debunks Webster's, my dear beloved Webster's definition. And it really made me think again. And this is a book called Prescription for Lasting Success by Susan Reynolds. She's a cardiologist by training, was also the lead of a large emergency department in California for many, many years, realized that one of her strengths was that she was really good at teaching, leading in the healthcare field. So that's what she does now. In this book, she says you have to have what she calls these components that I'll say are a little bit of your nature, and then you have to exercise within a framework a little bit of that nurture. And she calls these the P's and the C's. So here's the P's. If you are going to lead, you must have purpose. You must have passion. You have to have a plan. You're going nowhere without a plan, which means you need your people because you can't do it alone. And you have to have good old down-home perseverance. That's what it takes by nature. You harness your P's. So you develop that purpose, passion, planning, people, and perseverance, and then you execute and exercise. Notice those are verbs. They're active. Doesn't mean you do it once. You do this all the time. You have your C's. So you harness those P's, and then what you need to do is have clarity. You must be consistent. You have to collaborate. You have to have compassion, creativity, and that courage to see it through. And notice how the P's and the C's complement one another. Now here's where it debunks Webster's. I want you to notice there's no P for position. That's the definition of, right? Position or function. There's no P. There's no P for president. There's no P for president-elect. 0 P, sir. There's also no C for CEO, CMO, CNO. I don't care what what you are. There's no C for a co-chair. So what this tells you, we debunk Webster's in a sense because there is no hierarchy. Zero hierarchy here. This means each and every one of us can harness our P's, practice consistently, do our C's, and we will lead. We will. And that's what everyone is doing. That's what we're seeing in what Human Touch has done, what Vandy does, what many of you are doing. So it got me to thinking too, some of you, I apologize for those of you that hear me use these quotes all the time, but those that you don't, that also made me look at them differently. So there's this wonderful movie called Remember the Titans. It's a Disney movie, it's a football movie. It's fabulous. It's one of my top 5 movies, my feel-good movie. It's actually based on a true story. It's about 2 schools that have to integrate in Virginia in the 70s. So again, I'm of that vintage, I remember integration. So the scene is where the captain, notice the C word, the captain, is looking down at his defensive lineman and he's kind of saying, you have a bad attitude. And this defensive lineman looks up and says, I have an attitude. Are you the captain of this team? Yes, I'm the captain of the team, the C word. He goes, well, captain, attitude reflects leadership. So by reading this prescription for success and thinking of there's no position involved, it really made me think about this quote in a very different way. So our attitude reflects our leadership, and that can be in a positive way if we harness the P's and use the C's. And then the other quote that many of you have heard me say actually has come from a conversation I had with my dear friend and colleague and business partner, Carolyn Clancy, who we were talking one time when we were going on some consulting gig and we were talking about mentors and people that made a difference in our lives. And she says, you know, I have this professor that said, notice the P word, professor, the all-knowing, who actually looks at this class and says, leadership is everything and leadership begins with you. Not me, you. So again, we take those P's and those C's, and that's our prescription for success. Our attitude will reflect our leadership. Our leadership will be everything, and it begins with us. Think about where we're talking about grassroots and up. That's where it starts. So it got me thinking even more that when we lead, we also need to be conscious leaders. That's what this reminded me of too. This book said this isn't a steady state. This isn't static. This is something that's growing and morphing. So I have to be a conscious leader, right? I have to lead with my heart, and I need to lead with my head. So if I lead consciously with my heart, think of the P's. That's going to give you, your heart's going to give you your purpose, your passion, and your perseverance, right? Your head is going to give you the plan and working with those people. With your C's, when you exercise them, your heart's going to give you that creativity. It's going to give you that compassion, and it's going to give you your courage. And your head is going to maintain that clarity, that consistency, and your collaboration. So we all need to be conscious, thoughtful leaders. And that means as well that we have to look deeply and inwardly at ourselves as our team. Thank you, Brene Brown. We have to know we are vulnerable, rumble with it. And then we can't hide from answers. We have to ask the questions. Thank you, Dr. Palmisano. Lead in calm, but lead in crisis. So all of these things come together to tell us that we need to be conscious leaders. So at the end of the day, I think what I really want you all to do as I welcome you to this fabulous city and for this wonderful conference that Sarah and Marianne and the annual meeting planning committee have in store for you. I want you to really think about your P's and think about your C's. Think about your own personal conscious leadership, where you want to go. And obviously, since it has nothing to do with a position or a hierarchy, you can do those P's and C's, whether that's in your personal life, your community life, your professional life, whatever it happens to be. So I want you to take every opportunity at the meeting, the educational opportunities, the networking opportunities. Whether you're out to dinner with friends, whether you're in a small group meeting, whether you're in the gym, whether you're just in your room, chilling out in your jammies, thinking about your program, stuff you want to do in your life. I want you to really feed your brain. I want you to fill your heart, and I want you to go forth and lead. And this is our vision at SABM. And if we all do this, we're going to see even more reach than we've seen with all these folks that have already proven what they're doing in their programs and globally today. So it's a real honor for me to be here. It's a joy and a delight to stand alongside you all and serve the work. And that's really what I'm here to do along with each and every one of you. So enjoy the meeting. Channel your inner cowgirl or cowboy. Try to beat my boots. Tomorrow they will be red. Just warning, just saying. And so please go and enjoy every session. And we're going to go ahead. I'm going to give it back to Sarah, Mary Ann, wherever they are. Thank you so much.